action potential. So we say whenever we talk about the action potentials in the heart. So action potentials in the heart, whenever we talk about, there are two kinds. So you have to see each and everything here and remember these things. These are very important topic as I keep on saying again and again. So these are two kinds. The first we call as fast response atrial myocyte, ventricular myocyte, Purkinje fiber. The other one is called by the name slow response action potential. It is definitely called by the name FRAP. So FRAP and FRAP we say, which is the modern terminology. FRAP basically means slow response action potential, which actually is signifying the potential which I will see in the dominantly SA node and AV node. Now, when I discuss the action potential, although the fast response action potential is being shown by all the three, traditionally we have been calling it ventricular action potential. Although the same potential will be shown exactly same by the atrial myocytes as well as Purkinje fiber. But we will be naming it ventricular action potential because of the same terminology being used in most of the books. And again, because SA node is our main pacemaker, I will be discussing slow response action potential with respect to SA node, although the same graph would be shown by AV node as well, right? Now let us discuss how do they differ, what are the ion channels involved. When I talk about fast response action potential, or as I told you, ventricular action potential. Now you till now have done in the nerve muscle a neuronal action potential, right? So please remember this is entirely different. If I quickly draw the neuron action potential, you could recall it was looking like this. This was my neuronal action potential. Remember, these are various values. So this is RMP, which is the minus 70 millivolt in a neuron. This is I'm just revising neuron with you, right? So that you become aware. This was the threshold potential minus 55 millivolt. This was the highest achievable value plus 35. Then it became a little more negative. It goes up to minus 75 and then it finally returns back to the RMP, right? So this was the various phases of the action potential. This was used to called as phase 0. This is called as phase 1, 2 and 3. Similar terminology I would be using in ventricular action potential, but the graph is not going to look like this. Let's quickly revise the ion channels involved in the neuronal action potential. Remember, this is slope of the action potential, also known as free potential. Once it touches minus 55, there is quick, fast opening of voltage gated sodium channels, which is responsible for phase 0. These are known as VGNA, voltage gated sodium, which are fast to open, fast to close. They open quickly, they close quickly. So in phase 1, which is my repolarization, is due to closure of sodium and opening of potassium. Finally, in phase 2, the potassium channels are maximally open, and phase 3 they start closing down. So this is the repolarization and finally restoration of membrane potential, right? So this is just neuronal action potential, a very quick overview. This is not my topic because this has been taught to you in nerve muscle physiology. So now I'll quickly take this out from here and let's strike this off and start with the ventricular action potential. So this was just to make you aware that the neuronal action potential is nowhere same like the ventricular action potential. The frap or the ventricular action potential is on the contrary is like this. So we say this is the RMP. What is RMP? Resting membrane potential. This is minus 90 millivolt in cases of cardiac muscle, especially the myocytes. Which myocytes? Atrial and ventricular, right? Because I am discussing ventricle here, this would be the resting membrane potential of my ventricle, minus 90 millivolt. Then as you can see, it is at RMP. Then due to opening of some sodium channel, it reaches this threshold, which is the value is generally not mentioned in the books. And even if you don't write it in exam, we will not be deducting any of your marks. This is around minus 70 threshold potential. And the main thing happen what is as soon as it touches this threshold, there is a quick rapid opening of the voltage gated sodium channels, giving me the first phase, which is known as phase 0. So phase 0, what is happening is the RMP is becoming less and less negative. It crosses 0 somewhere and reaches the highest value. Surprisingly, the highest value here is also same, just like neuron, plus 35 millivolts. What is the reason for phase 0 of the ventricular action potential? The reason is opening of voltage gated sodium channel. Opening of voltage gated sodium channel. I might write this like this, VGNAC, voltage gated sodium channel, right? So you should be aware when we use these short terms. So immediately at once it touches the threshold, there is a lot of opening of the voltage gated sodium channels. How do it touch the threshold? Remember, cardiac muscle has gap junction. The stimulus, we stimulate the ventricle, a little bit of sodium ion comes, it makes it reach positive charge. When I add to negative, it will make it reach the threshold. Then there would be quick rapid opening of voltage gated sodium channel, which will bring about the phase 0. Phase 0, this decrease in RMP crossing 0 is also known by the term depolarization. This is known by the word depolarization. So phase 0 is nothing but depolarization. What is depolarization? Decrease in RMP. RMP becomes less negative, right? Why it is becoming less negative? Because there is sodium more outside the cell. Remember, this is ECF, this is ICF. Over here, I was at minus 90 millivolt. Naturally, when lots and lots of sodium comes in from outside, I will be adding positive charge to it, and thereby I reach plus 35, giving me phase 0 of the ventricular action potential. The reason being opening of voltage gated sodium channel. Now understand, had it been a neuronal action potential, please try to see now, had it been a neuronal action potential, repolarization would have started like this and the graph would have been somewhat like this. And I would have said, if I would ask any one of you, okay, tell me what is this to this? Let us say A to B. So everyone would tell me, sir, this is repolarization. But what is happening in my cardiac ventricle is that the repolarization starts, then for a long time it stops, or no, it is not decreasing, no repolarization is happening, and then it again starts. Due to this reason, and as the repolarization is not occurring like as in a neuron, we call this phase as phase 1. This phase 1 is known as, please remember it clearly, initial repolarization. Initial repolarization. And what is the reason of repolarization? This I think generally you know what is the reason for repolarization. For repolarization, there is only one reason. There should be opening of potassium channels. Potassium is more in the ICF. Once the potassium will leave the cell, my internal environment of the cell will again start becoming negative. So what is the reason for initial repolarization? Closure of voltage gated sodium channels and opening of voltage gated potassium channels. That means I stop them. Sodium cannot come in, so the RMP will not further depolarize. It stops at plus 35. A lot of people ask, sir, why only plus 35? It should go to plus 100, it should go to plus 70. So, as you have seen in the nerve muscle action potential, that there is something known as a nurse potential, it will never cross its nurse potential. Secondly, why it is not even touching the nurse potential of sodium is around plus 62. So why it is not even going to plus 62? The reason being channels are opening much earlier, right? Channels are sorry closing much earlier. So channels close at plus 35. So closure of voltage gated sodium channel plus or and opening of voltage gated potassium channel. So potassium have opened and sodium have closed. But now we come to the favorite phase of the examiner for all the exams, this straight line. They love to ask this. This is known as phase 2 or plateau phase. We all understand plateau, straight line, plateau phase. Why is this value not dropping? Because you should be asking me, sir, potassium is going out, so value should have been like this, but the value is not dropping. We are seeing a phase 2, which is a plateau phase. So why plateau is being seen if the potassium channels are open? So now please concentrate. The reason is just keep on looking here. Although the sodium has closed and this potassium, mind you, is still going out, but the value is not falling because another channel open, and these are now known as calcium slow channels or slow calcium channels, or some people also call them by the name CALL, where LL stands for long lasting calcium channels. Long lasting calcium channels. So you should be able to get it now. If one negative charge is leaving the cell continuously, but another positive is coming in, will the value drop? No, no, no. Value will not drop. Why? Because one is going out. Who is going out? A positive potassium. But who is coming in simultaneously? A positive calcium. So what is the reason for plateau phase? The value not dropping or a big long straight line. The reason being we say opening of long lasting calcium channel. Opening of CALL, calcium long lasting, or as some books say, opening of slow calcium channels. Actually, long lasting means they are remaining open for a long duration. That is why we have a long plateau in the ventricular action potential. Then it brings me to phase 3, this one. Now what you are able to see is again that the repolarization has started again and plateau has ended. So this is definitely called by the term final repolarization. Final repolarization. Why final? Because this is the not initial. This is initial phase 1. This is final. This is the last one. Final repolarization. The reason of final repolarization is again, remember potassium channels we did not close at all. We only had open calcium. So now what happens is there is closure of the calcium long lasting and opening of the voltage gated potassium channel. So potassium remain open but the calcium has closed. Right. So now the value again starts dropping by the time I am back at this phase, the last phase, which is my phase 4. Phase 4 is just I am trying to do restoration of RMP. I have returned back to my resting membrane potential. It is known as restoration of RMP. So you know that a lot of sodium had entered inside. I will like to push this sodium out so that my internal environment again becomes minus 90. How will I do that? You know the name of the pump from the general physiology. The restoration of RMP will be done with the help of 3 sodium, 2 potassium, ATPase pump, right? So I'll be using 3 sodium potassium ATPase pumps to restore the internal environment of the cell, that is known as the restoration of RMP. Let us revise these phases again, and this time we will add a little bit of latest information which is being given not in your books, but maybe you need to know to have an edge, and that is first phase, depolarization. No confusion in this. That is due to opening of voltage gated sodium channel. This first phase 1 is due to the initial repolarization, closure of voltage gated sodium, opening of potassium. Now, these potassium channels are now being called as by the name TROP, trop potassium channels. Very easy to understand. Trop is T stands for transient, R stands for rectifier, O stands for outward, and P stands for potassium. So people have started calling the potassium channels which open initially by the name transient rectifier outward potassium channels. Each and everything is very simple here. Just you have to do translation of the English language, nothing else. What is happening here? You know, transient. The potassium remains open for a small time. So transient. Rectifier. It is bringing my value back to minus. Outward. Potassium is moving outward. Who is moving outward? Potassium. So we call them as trop channels. Even if this is not for everyone, if you don't want to remember trop, doesn't matter, please remember opening of potassium channel. This will only be asked to those people who are aiming for distinction, right? So they might ask you what is trop only when the examiner will like to give you maybe extra marks above 70 when we are talking about, right? Otherwise, generally they do not ask. And even in exam, we don't expect because people generally will even not write the opening of potassium channel clearly, and that really hurts, right? So please understand and remember trop. Using the same terminology, these potassium channels are now being called by a similar word, drop. So OP will remain same, outward potassium. DR will become now delayed rectifier. Drop is delayed rectifier outward potassium channels. It is very, very simple. Just try to understand. One is opening initially, which is a transient channel. It opens and closes. Another is opening after a long time. It is delayed. And again, it is bringing back the RMP back to the minus 90 value, right? Also, since we are discussing this, you should be knowing that the RMP of Purkinje cells is RMP of Purkinje cells is or fibers is minus 80 millivolt, right? So RMP of Purkinje fibers is minus 80 millivolt. Fine, so let's do one more. This is a very, very important figure because you will be studying in pharmacology next year when you go into pharma. You will be studying a lot of drugs which we like to give to the patients in whom there is excessive arrhythmias. Arrhythmia means abnormal rhythms of the heart. So in those people, we will like to give the channels or the drugs which can block my sodium channels, maybe block my these calcium channels, and they are known by various names such as calcium channel blocker drugs, and we can call them, which you will study in pharmacology, by at least as of now because it is very nascent in your MBBS light as of today. So anti-arrhythmic drugs, right? So a lot of anti-arrhythmic drugs are used depending on which phase I will like to use it. This you will be taught to you in pharmacology. So once you go there, they will expect you to know 0, 1, 2, 3 in detail, right? Again, I'm telling you, please remember clearly the reason for plateau. It is very, very important, slow calcium or calcium long lasting. Remember the reason for depolarization, voltage gated sodium. So where is calcium, where is sodium? You should be thoroughly clear in this, right? You should be absolutely clear that where is sodium involved and where is calcium involved. Let's look at now the pacemaker action potential or the pacemaker potential. How does the SA node potential looks like? What effect does it show me? What is it known by the name? Slow response action potential. Why? Right? Again, pacemaker is very, very important for exam because of the huge importance of this being asked repetitively. So now we are going to do the trap or the slow response action potential. Slow response action potential. Here I will be discussing because in usual most of us SA node is the pacemaker, so I will be calling it SA node or pacemaker potential. Now, pacemakers have a wonderful property which we all know that they are rhythmically discharging cells. Remember, other day I told you that the SA node discharges with a rate from 60 to 100, but most commonly the rate is between 70 to 80. It can go below up to 60, maximum up to 100, right? And every time it is generating an impulse. So in 1 minute, let us say my heart is beating, suppose 60 times, right? So if I say my heart is beating 60 times in a minute, then every 1 second the SA node is discharging and then generating a beat. Then again, second it contracts and generates a beat. And it keeps on doing it for life, right? If your heart rate is 80, then maybe it will discharge every 0.75 seconds. So it will keep on happening like this. So what is the reason? How is it able to generate the beat spontaneously on its own? This is what we will like to know in slow response action potential or pacemaker potential. So we say the rhythmically discharging cells, the rhythmic, I think I have a PPT of this, I'll quickly show you so I have to save some time and then I'll draw it with my hand. Yes, very quickly just we'll go through this. Let's glance through this. So rhythmically discharging cells such as SA node have a membrane potential that after each impulse declines to the firing level. Just read it once with me and then once I draw, absolutely everything will become crystal clear. So rhythmically discharging cells such as the pacemaker cells have a membrane potential that after each impulse declines to the firing level, right? So if I start writing all of these things down, then you will not be able to complete the 2-hour lecture even in 4 hours, right? So whatever is essential I'm drawing, whatever is maybe we just given in all the books, we can read through to save some time. This is because the paucity of time. So pacemaker cells have a membrane potential that after each impulse declines to the firing level, and then it triggers the next impulse, which is known as pre-potential or the pacemaker potential. The automaticity is due to spontaneous diastolic depolarization of the membrane potential following completion of each action potential. And this is known as the resting membrane potential that depolarizes is called as pre-potential. Pre-potential is also known as pacemaker potential. So let's see this, whatever we have read now. So rhythmically discharging cells such as the SA node, remember the other curve which you just saw was like this. SA node is not like this. The SA node is like this. Just see carefully now. The SA node or the pacemaker potential discharges like this. And maybe one. So this is not this. This much we can all make out, right? So what is special about the SA node pacemaker potential? So what did I show you in the transparency was, the PPT was, rhythmically discharging cells such as SA node have a membrane potential that after each impulse declines to the firing level. This is my RMP of the SA node. What is the RMP of the SA node? Minus 50 millivolts. Please write it over here as well so that you remember. These can be asked as 1 mark question or MCQs in the exam. SA node RMP is minus 50. I think you must have been told till now whatever normal values we expect you to write in exam should be from Genox. And AV node is minus 60 millivolts, right? So let's come back to our discussion. So the SA node has a resting membrane potential of minus 50 millivolts. This is the threshold potential, which is minus 40 millivolts. Now, what is this? Threshold potential. What is the meaning of threshold potential? The potential at which the response or the action potential is triggered, or the minimum potential at which the cell gives me a response. That is, unless and until I reach from minus 50 to minus 40, this SA node will not discharge. So I will not get a beat. As you can see, in comparison to the ventricular action potential, here there was phase 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Over here there is no 1 and 2. So we simply say this is phase 0. This is phase 3. But please focus on this one now. This has been called as, remember in physics you have studied the angle which it makes with the horizontal is called as, the angle which the line makes with horizontal is called as slope. So because of this line is sometimes called as slope of the pacemaker potential, or pre-potential. Pre means occurring before the actual potential. Pre-potential or slope of pacemaker potential, or also called by the term spontaneous diastolic depolarization. Why diastolic? Because remember, when there is no contraction, the heart is in diastole. So we call it the diastolic depolarization. Why spontaneous? Because it is rhythmically and spontaneously going to the threshold from RMP. I'll just share with you the reasons for all these happenings. Because phase 0, the RMP is becoming less negative and going or reaches this highest value, which is again not given in most of the books, but you should know, plus 10 millivolts. This is the highest achievable value in the SA node. This question was asked in the recent PG exams as well, that what is the highest positive value in the SA node, right? So you need to know plus 10, plus 35 each Tom, Dick and Harry knows, right? But plus 10 you have to know. Plus 10 is important. So plus 10 is the highest value. If you write in the pacemaker potential figure, once I ask you to draw in the exam, it would be wonderful if you can remember plus 10, right? So this gives you definitely an edge. Plus 10 is the highest achievable value. Naturally, when the RMP is becoming less negative, what will I call this phase 0? I will call it none other by the term depolarization. This much I think we all are hopefully clear. And in phase 3, I am again moving back to negative, and I come back to the decline back to the usual value. So phase 3 would be called by the term repolarization. What are the reasons for DN repolarization? Actually, we'll be discussing afterwards. Let's now focus on the main phase, which is my slope of the pacemaker potential or pre-potential, which is the actual phase which triggers the impulse or the response. And this is called by the name phase 4. So we have only 3 phases. 0, 3 and 4. No 1 and 2. Why no 1 and 2? Because there is no initial repolarization. There is no plateau in the pacemaker tissue or pacemaker potential, right? So let us discuss the reasons for various phases now. So reasons for various phases. So I'll quickly make one more for you, and this is now our final figure of which we will discuss each and everything. So this is the first beat, then the second beat, and it is going like this. Now let's quickly do again. I will not write everything now. This is minus 40 threshold potential. This is minus 50 RMP. Please carefully pay attention now that I have drawn this line beyond minus 50. What is the reason and what happens? So now I am discussing the phase 4 or the slope of pacemaker potential or pre-potential, or the reason why there is slow and spontaneous depolarization to the threshold. Minus 40, minus 50, and here I reach a value minus 60. I reach a value minus 60. What happens when I reach minus 60? Why do I reach minus 60, right? So let's discuss the phase 4. So commonly, you know, from nerve muscle physiology, RMP discussion, which you must have been taught, and that is the beauty of action potential, that whenever we discuss this, we need to revise each and everything what you have studied till now. So in phase 4, this phase I am discussing now. What is phase 4? Slow and spontaneous depolarization to the threshold potential. Why does that happen? So in phase 4, please note it in exactly the way I will write down, and please remember each and everything on this slide. This is a very high yield information which you need to understand, and if you understand it in one go, it will really help you out, right? It is a very, very important slide now. So in phase 4, which is the slow and spontaneous depolarization to the threshold. Slow and spontaneous depolarization to the threshold. How and why does that happen? How does that happen rather? How is more important, right here? So how does it happen? So we say at rest, RMP of the SA node, RMP of the SA node is minus 50 millivolts. Please keep on seeing here as well. This is now again minus 50 millivolts. At rest, potassium channels, which potassium channels? Voltage gated naturally. At rest, the potassium channels are open. That means potassium is leaving the cell. If potassium leaves my cell, then the positive charge is leaving the cell, so the RMP becomes minus 60. That is why the value is going down. It becomes minus 60 from minus 50, right? That is the first reason. That even at rest, the voltage gated potassium channels are open, right? So first things to know. At rest, the potassium channels, the voltage gated are open, and RMP becomes more negative. I hope you remember what is this called as. When the RMP becomes from minus 50 to minus 60 millivolts. This is not depolarization. This is called as hyperpolarization. Hyperpolarization, right? Remember hyper, we also say to each other, why are you getting hyper, right? So somebody is scolding you, you say you to your parents, to your teacher also, why are you getting hyper, right? I was not doing anything. I was not creating records in the class. So hyper means more. Here it is becoming more negative, right? So this is known as hyperpolarization. So once I reach minus 60, now the interesting thing starts. So once we reach this minus 60 millivolt, why do I reach minus 60? Because at rest, voltage gated potassium channels are open. Once I reach minus 60 millivolt, so I was at minus 50 and I have reached minus 60 millivolts. But remember, where do I want to go? I want to reach minus 40 because then only the SN node will discharge and give me a beat. But right now I'm going the other way. I'm becoming more negative rather. So we should feel that what is the hell this is happening? This is opposite of what I want. So please listen carefully now. Once I reach minus 60 millivolts, here is the first event which occurs, which is which is opening of opening of hyperpolarization induced sodium channels. Wherever till now you have studied in your course, by the time you have joined college and we have been teaching you, me or maybe any other person, PG or FSR or faculty, nowhere nobody has told you till now that the hyperpolarization causes the opening of sodium channel. And remember what causes opening of sodium channel? Always depolarization. So this is something like funny, right? This is an awkward or a funny behavior. That is why these hyperpolarization induced sodium channels which open at minus 60 millivolt have been given the name funny sodium channels. So next time person asks you why they are called funny, you should be able to give the reason. Because you will say, madam, everywhere the sodium channels open with depolarization, but you know this is the only place where they are opening with hyperpolarization. So don't you find it funny? Yes, I do, right? So, sir or madam, anyone ask in the Viva, in the final exam, please remember, very interesting question. Why do the hell I call it funny? Funny because they are opening with hyperpolarization. Just keep on focusing on this figure now. Potassium channels were open, but now they started opening. Which channels? NaH. I write it like this. Increased in current due to sodium H. Each and every term is important here. These are known as sign language of the potentials. You should be able to understand. I'll explain you. I means current. Current means positive charge is coming in. Which positive charge? Sodium. H means hyperpolarization induced sodium channel. Increase means it is more sodium is coming. I means current. So current due to opening of sodium channel. So please understand the positive, I start adding to minus 60 positive charge. And remember, sodium is coming much in more amount rather the potassium which is leaving. Due to the simple reason, inside of my cell is negative and sodium is more in ECF. So sodium is coming inside through two gradients, the voltage gradient and the electrochemical gradient. Remember, if this is negative minus 60, positive charge will be attracted. Outside sodium is more, inside it is less, electrochemical gradient, right? So it is coming along the diffusion gradient, outside more, inside less, inside negative, outside positive, along the electrochemical gradient also. So because of the two gradients, the electrochemical and the voltage, the sodium quickly comes in. But remember, I still have not reached minus 40. Now as soon as a little positivity happens inside my SA node cell, a little positive due to sodium, let's understand the second event which happens now. The second event which happens now is there is opening of another channel which is known as opening of transient calcium channel. These are known as or written like this increased I CAT, where T stands for transient calcium channels. Right? I hope you remember the plateau ones. The plateau ones were calcium long lasting or slowly opening channels, slow calcium. This is transient. Transient means something which happens very quickly and closes down. So now what happens? Another channel opens. This is calcium T. So again, lots and lots of calcium comes in. Lots and lots of calcium. So lots of sodium plus lots of positive calcium. So lot of positivity inside. I'm adding lot of positive charge to minus 60 very, very quickly. And finally, one last nail in the coffin. The last nail in the coffin is that this potassium which was leaving my cell, which you know we have discussed. Finally, the third event is closure of voltage gated potassium channel. So what finally happens? I have closed these potassium, and now we could easily understand that I was at, please see carefully, this is, once more I'm discussing this is very, very important. I was at minus 50 because at rest the potassium channels are open, I reach minus 60. This is known as hyperpolarization. The first event which happens is opening of hyperpolarization induced sodium channels, also known as funny sodium currents or funny sodium channels. Once there is a little positivity inside, lots of transient calcium open, making my inside of the SA node more and more positive. So I am adding lots and lots of positive to minus 60, lots and lots of positive from sodium and calcium. You can ask me here, sir, who plays the more important role? Again, not given properly in the UG books, but you should know the calcium transient channel has been given or has been ascribed the most important role in the pacemaker potential, or it plays the maximum role. So maximum importance is of transient calcium, or you can say maximum contribution, whatever pleases you, right? Maximum contribution. But the calcium channel, that's a big but the calcium channel does not open first. Who opens first? Hyperpolarization induced sodium, or the other favorite word of the examiner, funny sodium. Now, when I add lots and lots of positive to minus 60, the value will reach minus 40. And mind you, I have closed the potassium also, so no positive charge is leaving the cell. So even my positive potassium also starts accumulating. So because of these three reasons occurring one after another, I reach the minus 40 millivolt, which is my threshold potential. So if I ask you what is the exact order of opening the channel, please remember the exact order of opening the channel is NCK. NCK. NCK means first the sodium H, then calcium T, and then potassium channel, right? So voltage gated potassium. So please remember the sodium H and calcium T, who plays a more important role or maximum contribution, transient calcium. Again, not given in Genome, not given in Guyton. That is the problem. They do not update their books properly, especially once the Indian authors are being involved in updation of these books. They have really somehow made a lot of mess about, you could say, some important chapters, right? So please remember transient calcium most maximum contribution, but the channel starts with the funny sodium. Why funny? Because they are opening with the hyperpolarization. So let's go back to my figure now. This was the most important phase which we wanted to discuss, and let's go back to the figure now. So we were discussing this thing that it is like this, and we have just had a discussion about the phase 4. So what we came to know that this is minus 50, but it became more negative and eventually it reached threshold minus 40. Once it reaches threshold, there is immediately this phase which is known as phase 0. Which phase we have discussed till now? That was phase 4. This is phase 0. Phase 0, you already know the name. We have discussed in ventricular action potential. This is depolarization. And what is the highest achievable value? Plus 10. Highest achievable value plus 10. So highest achievable value is plus 10 millivolt, of course. So what is the reason for depolarization? Although you will be tempted to say sodium again, that is what I will like you to focus here. There is no sodium involvement here. Only one funny sodium, that too also not the usual sodium. So here the phase zero is due to opening of calcium LL. I hope you remember LL, long lasting calcium channel. So very important question for the exam. Which channel is involved in the opening of or the depolarization of SA node? Please remember, for depolarization of SA node, they will give you always an option of sodium, which is the wrong answer. It is due to the same channel, calcium long lasting. Then what is this phase? Remember, we just discussed a while back. This is known as phase 3, because there is no plateau, there is no initial repolarization, value is going back, reaching back the RMP. So phase 3 is known by the name repolarization. And for repolarization, there is no confusion, there is only one reason. Definitely, I need to do a closure of the calcium LL and opening of voltage gated potassium channel, right? So that is the reason for depolarization and repolarization. You have to know each and everything. Again, I am repeating. Phase 4, remember, sodium hyperpolarization in these channels opens first, then opens calcium transient, which plays the maximum contribution, and finally potassium close. For repolarization, we have the voltage gated potassium channels, the same one which we have been discussing. And for the depolarization of SA node, the highest achievable value is plus 10. And the reason is not voltage gated sodium as in ventricle, the reason is calcium long lasting, right? So you please remember this, very, very important. And now we are going to discuss some molecular aspects, which is again a very high yield topic, that what happens to the pacemaker potential because of the sympathetic stimulation. So this, I think you might have been made aware in muscle physiology and cardiac muscle. I'm going to discuss in very quickly after this in 15-20 minutes the cardiac muscle quick revision also, right? So don't worry if you have forgotten. Sympathetic stimulation to the heart brings about the following effects. The first is chronotropy or chronotropic effect. It brings about the following effect. Chronotropic. So I'm not writing purposefully what it means, because any one of you, without me asking you, you can just try to recall in your mind if you know these effects or not. Chronotropic, inotropic, badmotropic, and bromotropic. Surprisingly, there is one more which is again not given in the usual books, but very interesting one, just discovered in last 2-3 years. So chronotropic is increase in heart rate. Inotropy is increase in force of contraction or contractility. Desmotropic is increase in automaticity or increase in excitability, right? Whatever the way you want to remember. And bromotropic is increase in velocity of conduction velocity. A lot of people have confusion to remember Basmo and Dromo, and most of the people remember Chrono and Ino. Basmotropic, Bromotropic, these terms are so common. I'll keep on speaking them. We will keep on revising. But first, let us know what is this new one which is not given anywhere. Lusiotropic. The lusiotropic is an exception and very interesting one. It might have been taught to you in nerve muscle. If the concerned person hasn't talked about luciotropy, don't worry, I'll do so after 5 or 10 minutes once I quickly revise cardiac muscle. Right now, just write down the effect. It is increase in rate of relaxation. A lot of people can have confusion. What is he saying? He's saying increase in force of contraction and increase in rate of relaxation. How can both occur simultaneously? Don't worry, we'll discuss this. I'll tell you the exact molecular mechanism also. Do you have to remember these? Yes. What I was telling you was a lot of people have this confusion that what is basmotropic stand for, what is bromotropic. So maybe if this helps you, you can remember. It's a simple ABCD. ABCD, right? So ABCD, automaticity, basmotropic, chronodromo, ABCD, right? Just remember it like this. And automaticity is same as excitability, right? So now we want to know what is the effect of the sympathetic stimulation on the pacemaker potential. This is the effect which I'm seeing, right? But what is the molecular mechanism? Why do these effects happen and how does the pacemaker potential look like when I give a sympathetic stimulation? And before that, we should also know what will happen to the same pacemaker potential if I give a vagal stimulation. Now, vagus, we have discussed the other days, the vagal stimulation normally mostly only decreases heart rate. And we say it has not much effect on contractility. And there is a reason I say that not much on effect on contractility, because remember vagal stimulation or vagal fibers sparsely innervate the ventricles. So ventricles are very, very sparsely innervated. Sparsely we all understand, very less, very, very less, marginal, very, very less, sparse innervation. So vagal fibers sparsely innervate the ventricles. That is why vagal stimulation does not have much effect on contractility, because remember the ventricles are my main force generating power pumps, right? So vagal fibers do not have much effect on contractility. Very important question for the Viva, because they sparsely innervate the ventricles. Although this is given in all the books, but still you people don't tell us in the exam. That is why I've written it over here, right? So let us look at the changes on the pacemaker potential once I give the sympathetic and the vagal stimulation and the molecular mechanisms for the same. So let me first draw one more quick normal. So first I am drawing this. So actually I'm taking a class from college itself, and there is a slight issue here in the internet in comparison to my home. So we have to bear with it because we are being not allowed to take from home, right? So we have to take from here. So this is the normal one. Now please understand, I'm not going to write again all these things. This is my for minus 60, minus 50, and minus 40, right? And let us look at the first figure when I am doing or giving a sympathetic stimulation. When I give a sympathetic stimulation, please focus what happens now. I see this kind of pacemaker potential change. I see this kind of pacemaker potential change. So had we will be doing the physical class, I would have definitely asked you what is the red one, right? So what is the red one? The red one is effect of sympathetic stimulation on the pacemaker, where the black is normal. And let's draw the vagal as well. So vagal stimulation is very, very different. The vagal stimulation is like this. So the green one is vagal stimulation. Black is normal, red is sympathetic, green is the vagal. How can I make on the graph without me telling you? Very simple. If any one of you could have thought about it, the molecular reason I'll just share with you in a while. The sympathetic stimulation, which is the red one, please understand in comparison to the black one, the sympathetic stimulation causes increase in my slope. You can very well make out this. The pace, the angle has increased. Remember, this is the new angle now. It has become much steeper, right? Slope has increased. Increased slope of pace maker potential. The first thing which I see. Secondly, in the same time period, in which I was having only two black beats or two normal discharges. Now I am having one, two, three red. That means it is showing me increased heart rate. In other words, the distance between the two peaks have reduced. Please see the black ones. The distance is much greater. Secondly, the amplitude of the red is more than black. That means there is increased amplitude, or I can say there is increase in contractility, right? In comparison, the vagal stimulation decreases the slope. It is taking a long time to reach the threshold, and there is only one green in the same time in which there were two blacks. That means the vagal stimulation has decreased the heart rate. Amplitude, as you can make out, has not been affected much. Why? Because the vagal fibers, generally we say they reduce but do not affect the contractility much. So if I have to make again, maybe I'll just show a little less than the usual. So I can say like this. So it has just a little less than the normal one. So decreased heart rate and a slight decrease in amplitude. So once we know how do the figure looks like, let me show you one figure from the book. So yes, and then I'll share with you the molecular mechanism. This is the figure from the book. Let's have a look. Again, what I can make out is the red one here is the normals. They have used different terms. This is the red one, which is normal. The blue one is my sympathetic stimulation. You can see in the same two red peaks, I have three blues and only one green, which is parasympathetic, right? So main effect is being shown of the heart rate here. Let us discuss the molecular mechanisms for the same. Why is it showing me the such effects which we have just discussed? Why this effect is being shown? So let's discuss the molecular mechanism. So very quickly we'll run through the molecular mechanism, very important. When I give a sympathetic stimulation, the sympathetic stimulation acts on the heart receptors known as beta 1 adrenergic receptors. So sympathetic stimulation acts on the heart via receptors known as beta 1 adrenergic receptors. When it acts on the beta 1, remember this is the molecular mechanism now, this is very important. When it acts via the beta 1 adrenergic receptors, it activates an enzyme known by the name adenyl cyclase. Adenyl cyclase converts ATP to cyclic AMP. Cyclic AMP is also called, as you will study in biochemistry, second messenger. And we also might teach you in endocrinology, but mainly the biochemistry people do that in detail. So this cyclic AMP is known as second messenger. Again, I am discussing this very important mechanism. Sympathetic stimulation acts via beta 1 adrenergic receptors on the heart. ADR is adrenergic. Beta 1 adrenergic receptors on the heart, which stimulates adenyl cyclase, which converts ATP to cyclic AMP. Cyclic AMP then causes activation of the enzyme known as cyclic AMP dependent protein kinases or cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase A. As you will be taught in biochem again, because this is very, very new for you people, kinases are those enzymes which you might have studied even before coming here to the medical college. The kinases are those enzymes, and before joining here, some people might be knowing kinases bring about phosphorylation. So the cyclic AMP activates the cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase A enzyme, which will now bring about, it causes phosphorylation of phosphorylation of the voltage gated calcium channels. This keeps the calcium channels open for long duration. They keep the calcium channels open for a longer duration. I hope you can recall where I was needing the calcium in the pacemaker potential. Where was I needing the calcium in the pacemaker potential? Remember, I needed calcium here, calcium T. I needed calcium here, which was my calcium long lasting. So there were two places where calcium was being needed. So main reason is that once I do phosphorylation of the calcium channels, there would be increased time for which the calcium channels will remain open, the transient and the long lasting. And because these channels remain open quickly and they are opening for a longer duration, I will be able to quickly reach the threshold. I will be able to quickly reach the threshold like this. And my depolarization will also be steep because of the phosphorylation of the voltage gated calcium channel, which keeps them open for a long duration. Some people also say, including Genong over here, that the another reason is that the cyclic AMP dependent protein kinase A, although I do not consider it the important one, but as it is written in Genome, they also say it causes increased opening of sodium H. But there is no reasons given here. The more logical one is phosphorylation of the calcium channels, which keeps them open for a long duration. Thus, we have increased slope of phase force and increased phase zero, right? So we will have quick phase zero and quick sharp slope. That is the reason why do I see the effect of sympathetic stimulation. Let's see what does the vagal stimulation do to the heart. Why does the vagal system depress the heart? Let's see the vagal one. When I talk about the effects of vagal stimulation on the heart, the vagal stimulation acts via the receptor present as M2 receptors on the heart, where M stands for muscarinic receptors. The muscarinic receptors, which you might have been taught in nervous physiology, they are of different types over here. They are M2 variety on the heart. And once the vagal stimulation or my acetylcholine acts on M2. Remember, vagus is acetylcholine, right? It's the same thing. So once it acts on the M2 receptors, it does two effects. This is very interesting now. First, it causes decrease in cyclic AMP. Remember, if the cyclic AMP would be decreased, you can naturally make out, we have just discussed a while back, there would be decreased protein kinase A, and decreased protein kinase A means decreased opening of calcium channels. On the contrary, it also activates a G protein. This is again a molecular messenger G protein activated potassium channel. They have been called by the name. They increase the current due to potassium ACH. They are written like this. Acetylcholine induced opening of potassium channels. But what is their special name? G protein activated potassium channel. Now please understand, if this was my normal pacemaker potential, if you now in this phase decrease the calcium and increase another type of potassium channel opening, now naturally potassium will keep on going out, so it will take a long time to reach the threshold. Why? Because I have opened the potassium channels, and due to this reason there is increased potassium channel opening, and increased potassium channel opening along with decreased opening of the calcium channel will cause, will bring about my increase in repolarization. So repolarization time will increase, and increased repolarization time means I will have decrease in heart rate. So can you now tell me, if I ask you, okay, tell me, acetylcholine acts via one mechanism or two mechanisms? Definitely you will say it is acting, sir, via two mechanisms. And now I ask you back, okay, sympathetic stimulation was acting via one mechanism or two mechanisms? You will say it was acting only via the cyclic AMP. So sympathetic stimulation, only one mechanism, right? Just keep this in mind. Very, very important point I'm coming to. Vagal stimulation, two mechanisms, CAMP as well as G protein activated potassium channel. Because the vagal fibers or the acetylcholine have a dual mechanism of action, that is why we say normally in you, me, normal people, normally vagal tone is the dominant tone in heart. The vagal tone is the dominant tone in heart. Why? Dual action. It has a dual action. So what do I mean when I say vagal tone is dominant tone in the heart? That vagal fibers normally will keep your heart rate low. And the more a person is exercising, the more the vagal tone increases. That is why in athletes, due to increase in vagal tone, regular exercise increases the vagal tone to the heart, and increased vagal tone to the heart in athletes is the reason for bradycardia in the athletes. So some athletes might be having heart rate even less than 60. But as we will discuss in cardiac output, although their heart rate is less, but their stroke volume is increased. What is stroke volume? Volume of blood ejected by the ventricle in one beat. This I will again discuss once we reach cardiac output, maybe next week. So stroke volume is volume of blood ejected by the ventricle in one beat. Volume of the blood ejected by the ventricle in one beat, right? So what is the reason for dominant vagal tone? Please remember, dual action. Because of the vagal tone being the dominant tone in the heart, we generally have a we say the athletes have a bradycardia at rest, right? So now another important thing is, because the vagal tone is the dominant tone, how did the scientists confer this before knowing that the vagal fibers have a dual action? So they did a very, very simple experiment which you and me can also do today, even in today's time. So they thought, okay, let us say that one, we have the vagal fibers, and I do not know that who is dominant. And the second, I have very logical, simple experiment they did actually. Sympathetic fibers. First, let us assume that I block the sympathetic fibers. How do I block? I gave I gave a drug known as beta blockers. The beta blockers are those drugs which will block those beta 1 adrenergic receptors which I just told you. Right? So just try to understand this. Second, what they did was, I'm not telling you what effect came out. Then second, what they did was, they actually thought of blocking the vagal fiber by the drug known as atropine. Atropine is an acetylcholine blocker. It blocks the muscarinic receptor. So now if I say that, okay, I do not know which tone is dominant in my heart, had these sympathetic fibers been dominant, normal heart rate we have discussed the other day is 70 or rather 60 to 100 per minute is the discharge rate of the SC node, but normally my heart rate is 70 to 80 per minute. So let us say I block these sympathetic fibers. Had the sympathetic tone been dominant, that means when I block these sympathetic fibers, what should have happened? You will immediately tell me, sir, heart rate should have decreased. Right? Why? Because sympathetic tone normally keeps your heart rate high. So if I block the sympathetic fibers, the heart rate should have fallen. Right? On the contrary, the vagal fibers normally decrease my heart rate. So if I block the vagal fibers by giving atropine drugs, the heart rate should have risen. Now only one thing can happen out of the two. When they did the same experiment to starting with the guinea pig, then dog, then rabbit, all they observed was the behavior was very similar to humans. This never happened and this was seen. That means they concluded vagal tone is the dominant tone in the human heart as well. So that is why we now have a concept. We say this is the resting heart rate, and there is a concept of intrinsic heart rate. Intrinsic heart rate is the heart rate which is seen after denervation of the heart. Denervation of the heart, mind you, means after transacting or cutting or removing both the sympathetic and parasympathetic fibers. So after the denervation of heart, that means after removing both sympathetic and vagal fibers, the scientists wanted to know, okay, what is your heart rate? That heart rate is known by the term intrinsic heart rate. Is it same as 70 to 80? No. Now they observe the intrinsic heart rate is 100 per minute. So this is different from the resting heart rate. That is why I'm telling you here. So after denervation of heart, the heart rate which is present in the animal is known as 100 per minute. Can we see in humans 100 per minute intrinsic heart rate in any situation? Yes, we can. If you look at this, if we have a person in whom we are seeing a transplanted heart. Remember, when I do a transplantation of the heart, I am going to put a heart from someone else into your body. That means your autonomic nervous system supply will not be innervating the transplanted heart. And that is why the transplanted heart, because it is denervated, will have an intrinsic heart rate of 100 and not 70, 80, 90. Right? So please remember this concept. Very, very important and interesting one. Now let's quickly revise cardiac muscle, and we can also pay some attention to some properties of the cardiac muscle, which again you have been taught everything in nerve muscle, but I'll do a very quick small recap so that once I start cardiac cycle, neither you nor I should face any problems, right? So especially for you. So let's start with the properties of cardiac muscle. This is a very quick overview. So we have competency to learn here. This is actually done in nerve muscle, but still very well. I'll quickly go through this. Properties of cardiac muscle, including its morphology, electrical, mechanical, and metabolic function. The other day I have talked about some properties. This is a wonderful picture showing me a morphological picture of the cardiac muscle. You can make out the various structures here. So you know that these, remember, what did I tell you about them? These were my intercalated disc. So these are the intercalated discs, and I'll just quickly go through everything we have discussed the other day, plus in nerve muscle, they must have taught you. Intercalated disc is the place of the mechanical linkage of the two or three cardiac muscle fibers. Inside the intercalated disc, I have what? Gap junctions. Inside this, I have gap junctions which allow rapid transmission of ions to pass from one cardiac muscle to another. Right? That is why the cardiac muscle, including the atria and the ventricles, they both behave as functional syncytium. It is not syncytium anatomically. Why? Because they have their boundaries. And syncytium anatomically or histologically is a mass of cells with no clear defined boundaries. So cardiac muscle, remember, is a functional syncytium. Why functional? The entire atria contracts together, the entire ventricle contracts together due to the presence of the gap junction, which allow the rapid transmission of ions from one cardiac muscle fiber to another. Right? Then we also say that some features which you know, the cardiac muscle fiber is involuntary, it is not under my control, it is striated, having lining, and it is having the same actin, myosin, troponin, tropomyosin, just like your usual the skeletal muscle. Also remember the cardiac muscle fiber is uninucleate. Please remember this. A lot of people when I ask, they tell me, sir, it is multinucleate. Absolutely wrong. This I hope you should have been knowing before even coming here in MAMC, right? They generally teach you this even in the your regular coaching stuff, right? So uninucleate, morphological properties. Once we know of these structures, let us look at some features by which the cardiac muscle fiber is different from the skeletal muscle fiber. We have also taken your exam, so you should be knowing this. So maybe even after giving the exam and you have noted down by opening your books, and this is like an open book exam, online exam which is happening. So remember, if you are doing in that way, it is only harming you and not affecting us, right? So we will come to know by the way you are writing that how much you know and how much you are writing directly from the book by opening the book, right? So what is the difference between the basic structure of the cardiac muscle versus the skeletal muscle? This is a very important slide and very interesting one on which we will learn a lot of things. Normally we say in a cardiac muscle fiber, the T tubule is much wider. The T tubule is much wider in a cardiac muscle fiber. Width of T tubule, as written in a lot of books, it's 5 times the skeletal muscle T tubule. I hope you can remember that this structure, which is invaginating downwards, is known by the name T tubule. So what is the first differentiating feature of the cardiac muscle? If I'm right over here, the first differentiating feature from the skeletal muscle is it has a wider T tubule. Wider T tubule means almost 5 times width. And some books say 25 times volume, but even if you don't want to remember this 5 and 25, just forget it. Don't worry. Just remember it has a wider T tubule. This is the width, right? It has a wider T tubule. Second difference from the skeletal muscle, the important ones we are discussing here. In the cardiac muscle fiber, or rather first discuss the skeletal muscle. In the skeletal muscle fiber, the T tubule is present in the skeletal muscle fiber at the actin myosin junction. But in cardiac muscle fiber, the T tubule is present at Z line, right? So in cardiac muscle, it is at Z line, and in skeletal muscle, it is at AI junction. AI, actomyosin. Remember, thick and thin band. I'll just show you a figure and let's save some time. Otherwise, I can draw also, but just to save time. Especially in the cardiac muscle, we have a structure known as dyad. In the skeletal muscle, So let me write skeletal muscle in the bracket. In the skeletal muscle, T tubule is at AI junction. In the skeletal muscle, we have a triad, not a dyad. What is a triad? A single T tubule with, please look over here, two terminal systems or two L tubules. These will constitute one triad. So, it hadn't been a skeletal muscle, a triad would be like this. One T tubule plus two terminal systems of the L tubule. But remember, this is not a triad. This is triad is in only skeletal muscle. So triad is in skeletal muscle. Here we have only a dyad. Dyad means 1 plus 2, no 3. So it's a dyad in the cardiac muscle, right? So we have a triad in the skeletal, a dyad in the cardiac muscle. We have a wider T tubule, more width of the T tubule in the cardiac muscle fiber. What is the other difference? Let me show you quickly the slide of dyad and triad so that you immediately remember, although I've drawn for you, and then I'll tell you the basic differences again. So very quickly, yes, let me see. Yes, this is the figure of the location of the sarcotubular system, T tubule and the cistern in the cardiac muscle. Please understand, as I've drawn also, this is the T tubule, this is only one cistern. So this 1 plus 1 will become 2 or dyad, right? This is the sarcolemma. Transverse invagination of the sarcolemma is known as the T tubule. You already know that. Remember, these are my thick filaments shown in blue. The black ones are thin, and we are seeing that these are the middle of the thin filaments represented by Z lines. So the T tubule is present at the Z lines in cardiac muscle. In the skeletal muscle, if you can recall, they are present not at Z lines, but this is my actin myosin thick thin junction, thick thin junction. So say they will be present had it been a skeletal muscle like this. They are not present at the Z lines, right? So that was the figure. Let's go back to the which I was drawing for you, the wider T tubule and the dyad and the triad. What else do we need to know? So we have done three differences. The cardiac muscle has a wider